Hello everybody and welcome back to Gardens and Crystals with me, Wesley Peterson, and today I am out in my garden here at Crystal Cottage, the area called the Botanical Garden, and I am going to be doing some maintenance work on this little border I have next to me here. Now I've shown this border in a video a long time ago when I showed you how you could prune back your Cerastium tomentosum, which is this plant I have around the bottom of the border here. It's a lovely plant with silver leaves all over, and it gets smothered with white flowers in the early summer season. These plants now have finished flowering, they've produced seed heads and they've dried out, and the whole plant is legging out and looking quite tatty. So this is the time to go in and give all of this a hard prune back. And this has to be done every year at least once. If I wanted to do it a little bit earlier after flowering, I could have. It would have bounced back a little bit more. I've left it a bit longer and I'm going to do it now. At the same time, in between all of this, I have grass growing that I really don't want in the border. And they are covering my cuttings that I put all around this border as well, that you can't see right now. And I'll take you in for a closer look to see everything in a moment. But I have cuttings of Boxus sempervirens rotundifolia, and they were just snippets from a huge bush that had been pruned back, and they were just lying on the ground. So I collected a load and just planted them in here and decided to just leave them to their own devices and see what happens. And they all took off, they all rooted out, and they've all grown out new growth this year, and I'm so pleased about this. But they are being shrouded out, so I want them to be able to come out now and shine a little bit more. I have a little bit of a theme in my botanical garden here where all of the borders have at least one aspect, one plant that is evergreen, so that I have something to look at in each border each winter when everything else has disappeared or it's only twigs. And in the middle of this border, you see this wonderful big bush here. This has been growing out amazingly for me for the last 3 years. This is my Malus Turingo variety Sargentii, and it gets white flowers all over it in the spring, and then it produces all these lovely green leaves, and then it will have lots of red berries on it in the late season, and it gives interest all year round. And even though it's deciduous, in the winter I get all of these stems and the trunk to look at during the winter months. So all of this is doing fabulously, but really needs a lot of work. So let's go in for a closer look at all of these plants so you know what I'm talking about. So let's start by going in and having a closer look at all of these Cerastium tomentosum, and you'll see as I get closer how much they have just legged out and grown over all the stones so that they can't be seen. And you'll notice that they've finished growing out their seed pods that are drying now, and the whole thing is looking quite tatty. And in between you can see one of my Boxus sempervirens rotundifolia, one of the many cuttings that I put in around the edge of this border, and you'll see another one here, and you can see another one here, and they are all the way around, but they are being crowded out by this Cerastium tomentosum. So I really do need to get in and give this a good tidy up. So if we look from this side, you can see the whole thing is looking quite a tatty mess in this area right now. And they're growing all the way around, and you can see here how they're crawling around on top of the Boxus sempervirens rotundifolia here. And all of this is happening underneath my beautiful Malus Turingo variety Sargentii. This beautiful bush, and is a perfect plant for biodiversity. So I just want to get in and sort all of this out so that it looks clean and tidy around the bottom again. We'll just have a look around the back here quickly. This is what it looks like from the back side. And there is going to be quite a transformation when I've cleaned up this area. And all of the pieces that I prune off will be rehomed in my west side garden. I have a long border there where I need a lot of cuttings of this plant along the edge because they grow so well as a filler. And they're so robust. And they are evergreen. And they bush out every year when hard pruned back, and they flower all over every single year as well. And while I'm here, I just want to show you underneath my terrace, because I did a video all about these Bergenia cordifolia eroica that I got, and they were quite motley, and I really wanted them to be planted under this side here. Look how green and lush they are growing out now. So go back and see that video of me planting these up, because you'll get to see what these plants looked like, and then you'll be able to understand the transformation of these plants. And even though if you look down here there's a snail, they haven't been hardly touched by slugs and snails. So I just wanted to give them a little show off before I carry on with today's video. Wonderful. But today it's all about these plants, so I'm going to get on with the pruning right now. So these seed pods sound like rattlesnakes. They're rattling around. And well, it's basically about getting in and pulling and pruning back as much as possible. Now, I don't know what kind of insects or amphibians and all sorts of things that could be hiding in under all of this, so a nice surprise might pop out. We might be lucky enough to see something special. Oh, it feels so good to finally be getting on with this project that I've been meaning to do for a while. You know what? This is not really working out with these little secateurs here. I'm going to get myself something else to work with. So now I've got myself some shears. This will go much quicker now. I just love that sound of the shears as they chop, chop, chop away at this plant. And it is so great. And this is going so much quicker. Just think that I was trying to do this with a little pair of secateurs. But, well, you learn as you go along, right? And now this is going great. Look how quickly I'm filling up this crate. So I'm starting to get there now. You can already see a difference because you can see all of my beautiful rocks around the edge now, all exposed. And now I'll be able to appreciate my border much more again. It may seem a bit of a chore to have to go in and do this every year with this plant, but you'll get an absolutely fantastic result, and it is well worth it. This plant bounces back every time. So now that I've cleaned these back a little bit, there's still a lot of fresh, lovely silver leaves in under my bush here, all the way around and around the back. And the browning parts at the front here, they will bounce back. And well, look here. This is a container full of viable, fantastic cuttings. And I do want to use these because I have an area in my west side garden where I want to have these growing along the edge of my long border there, and we'll go over and look at that in a moment when I've finished here. So a lot of this is going to be reused. As long as it's in the soil and it's moist, this will grow out so easily and bounce back and be a big hive of plants and flowers next year. And the same behind. So if you have any patches in your border when you finish just pruning back like I have, you can take clumps of this, place them in the soil and water this well for a while, and they will all bounce back. So I'm just going to check in my border if I need to put any of these in before I go over to the other one. And then I want to trim the area here so that we can go in and have a closer look at how everything is looking. So another little whiz around this border. Oh, this is so much fun. So no, this didn't really need filling out that much. So what I'm going to do now is get my strimmer and tidy up. So before I trim the edge around here, I just want to go in and prune back on my beautiful Malus Taringo bush here, just to keep it in the borders and also to lift it slightly so I can get more light to the plants underneath. And I'm basically just going to go in and prune back hard, just around like this, because that will also encourage my bush to shoot out new stems, and that's going to look wonderful. I've hardly pruned this plant since I've had it, but this year it's going to get a lot more pruning to keep it in shape. And now I can actually see one of my boxwoods has grown quite high here compared to the others. So I'm just going to prune that slight bit back so that they all grow out at the same height. Yeah, so I think that's it for now. Now I'm ready to give it a good trim off around the edge. I do enjoy trimming so that I can see all my rocks again. So now I just need to rake up around the area, and then I'll give it a good watering, and then I can take you in for a closer look at this quick fix. Now, if you wanted to do this and make sure that you get all of the pieces of grass out of the border, well, then you could have taken up all of these plants, chopped off all the top parts that I kept, and clean out all the soil, take all of the grass out, reset your soil, and then place in all of your cuttings from this plant, because it would bounce back next year fantastically, no problem. But I've done a quick fix. I want to keep the root balls that I have in here. I've just sheared back, taken out as many bits of grass as I can. There is still grass in here, but it will take a longer time to come up, and I can just pull bits up as I go along, as I always do. But now it's still looking much tidier than it did at the beginning. So satisfying tidying up, knowing I'm nearly done with this. So now for a quick hosing off to tidy up the area and my stones, because I love it when they look good, and water off my plants so that they can bounce back again. Look at these beautiful boxes now. Now you can actually see that I have evergreen bushes in here, and they're doing fabulously. But look how much they were hidden before. So when it comes to watering, I don't actually water that often in my garden, only when it's extremely hot and when I've done replanting or planted out cuttings and things like that, because they really do need a good helping start. So there we go. That's this border sorted out for this time. And it looks so much better. I'm so happy that I can now see my beautiful rocks. Oh, I really love looking at the rocks. They reflect the sun, they hold the heat, and there's a lot of wonderful wildlife living behind these, as well as fungi and bacteria and all sorts of things, microorganisms that are keeping this border happy and sustainable. And yes, when we go in for a closer look at these plants now, you're going to see they look quite brown and so forth here, but that is not to worry about. These will bounce back and they will look beautiful again. I've done this every single year, and it's really, really important that you do this. You can't have Cerastium tomentosum and just let it grow out, because it gets very leggy. And as you saw before, when it has all its seed pods after flowering, it really doesn't look that good, and it will take over all the other plants you have in the border. So let's now go in and have a look at how fabulously all of my Boxus sempervirens rotundifolia cuttings are doing underneath this Malus Taringo variety Sargentii. And then we'll go on to my new borders that I made last year, where I want to plant out all my cuttings from this wonderful plant, and you will see that process at the same time in this video. Let's go in for that closer look. So the close-up of my border tidied up for now, and look at all of these wonderful Boxus sempervirens rotundifolia cuttings I have growing around the bottom here, perfectly green, even in the shade behind here, very happy. And the ones at the front growing really well as well. And then look at the Cerastium tomentosum pruned back around the bottom that will bounce back in no time. So let's go round here and look at this beautiful bush here. Aren't they doing amazingly? It's so nice now that they can get out in the sunshine and be seen. my lovely evergreen winter interest plants when all of the others have died back quite a lot. But as I said, Cerastium tomentosum is evergreen, but it's nowhere near as thick as it is during the summer. So there's a little pathway behind. There's my border all the way around. There's my Malus Taringo variety Sargentii, looking wonderful after a little quick prune back as well. And the whole thing's looking amazing, I think, for now. So I really hope you like seeing this border closer up and the change. I know it's not perfect and I'm not expecting it to be, but I'm happy with it as it is with this quick fix. And now let's go over to Westside Garden so you can see me planting out my Cerastium tomentosum cuttings in my new borders there. Let's go. Right, so now we are in Westside Garden and the border I am going to be working on is this long one here that I created last year. And before I start, I'll just go and trim the front of the borders so that you can see the lovely rocks. And I did start already planting in this Cerastium tomentosum down here last year, just a few small cuttings. And look how they are growing out along the edge here. So I just need to give this a little tidy up and then carry on all the way along the edge here, in front of all of these beautiful plants I have coming up in the borders here. Lots of different things, and then we end down here in this little area where I have some rose bushes coming up. So this plant will help to fill out around the edge, and when I recreated the pathway here to the inner garden, I had put some of these plants around the edge already here, and these ones are survivors from being moved around in the dirt. So that's quite interesting. So here, there's the border. Let me get tidied up. So now I've trimmed the front of the border so you can see the rocks a little bit better. It already looks better like that. I need to go in and take out a few of the weeds at the front of the border. Then I'm ready to just go in and plant all of my Cerastium tomentosum along the edge here. Luckily, there are only just a few weeds. So what I try and do is take up the pieces of grass that are growing in the border, but the rest of the leaves and the seed pods, like the seed pods I have on these verbascum here at the front, I will just chop those off and make them into small pieces and leave them lying on the soil as a source of nitrogen for the plants to be able to take up as nutrients. It's so wonderful having a closer look at this border now and seeing how well my cuttings from last season are doing on the edge here, encouraging me to know that the ones that I put in now will be just as beautiful. So that's enough of that, a little bit of maintenance, now I'm ready to plant. So basically all you really need to do is take up a clump, rip it to the size you want, take any bits of grass or whatever could be hiding in there. That ball, you can rip off the seed heads as well to tidy it a little bit. And basically plant that in the edge of the border and it will take off as long as the soil is moist. So once again here, I just get into my zone and really enjoy tidying up these little cuttings and sorting them out. And I love that ripping sound as I rip off all the seed heads and so forth. You can be quite rough with this plant. It's just fantastic. So that's it, that's me done for the day. I decided to carry on planting out these plants along the edge of these borders here. And it looks absolutely fantastic, and I know they're going to bush out wonderfully for next year. So I'll take you in for a closer look in a moment. I got a little bit of tidying up done, a little bit of maintenance done, and trimmed the edge. And I'm really pleased that I got to use a lot of the cuttings that I had left in this border around the edge, and I still have a lot of end pieces and so forth left with all the seed pods and so forth. I'm just going to lay those out along the bottom edge of my rockery in my Garden of New Beginnings and then see what happens with them, if some of them can survive and merge up next year. I'm not going to go and plant them or anything. I'm just going to put them on the top as a kind of mulch layer and those that survive, well, that would be fantastic for the border too. So let's go in for this final closer look at the edge of this border behind me here in my west side garden, and then I am done with this video for today. So let's walk down into the west side garden so that you get an understanding of the proximity of where I've been working today here. You can see I have this long border along the back edge here that extends where the botanical garden ends into west side garden with all the different plants I have here. And this border here, I've just moved around and planted these fantastic plants here in this border. Have a look at these with their lovely yellow flowers. I had Cerastium tomentosum in this border all the way around, and I'm going to plot in some photos so you can see how beautiful it was. I decided to remove that and place in this plant and my red dogwood behind that I will be pruning right down next spring so it can come out with a lot more lovely stems. And then we carry on down, and this is the border where I've placed out all of the Cerastium tomentosum today along the edge, in front of everything else that's going on here, all the way down to this corner where I have rose bushes as well. And this is right before the entrance into the inner garden area and our annex. So it's absolutely fantastic. Seeing all of these rocks. We'll go back so you can get a fuller perspective of where I am. So there we go. This is the area that I worked on today. And I'm really pleased, as I said, with the outcome and the fact that I didn't have to waste any of the plant I was working on today. And as I said, any bits that I have left will be placed out in a pile around the bottom of my rockery without any work, and those that survive, survive. And those that don't, don't. They become mulch for everything else in the garden. So there we go. So I really hope you enjoyed seeing the transformation of two of my borders in two areas of my garden today, the botanical garden and here in the west side garden. So all I have to say now is thank you very much once again for watching Gardens and Crystals with me, Wesley Peterson. Please remember to like, subscribe and hit the bell so you know when my next video will be coming up, and I will see you again very, very soon. Goodbye.